Charlie Bahnson is a wildlife veterinarian, which means he did way better in school than what I did. This is a guy that works for North Dakota Game and Fish, and he's charged with the job of making sure that we do everything we can on behalf of wildlife in the state of North Dakota. I don't know if I can call you Charlie or Doctor. Heck, I'm going to do a little bit of both. Charlie, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate being on.
I want to talk a little bit about what the issue of the day is. Why do you need deer heads? Explain this to people.
Yeah, so we're pretty concerned about a disease called chronic wasting disease. It's a fatal disease of the brain of deer, and we've really we've had it in portions of the state of North Dakota for about a decade now. However, I guess just a few weeks ago there was an announcement from Minnesota DNR that a new area is potentially infected with this disease. A positive deer was found near Climax, Minnesota. So that's only a couple of miles from the North Dakota border, meaning that potentially the eastern portion of our state is kind of now part of the conversation when we talk about this disease in deer.
Well, go ahead, Charlie. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, but yeah, so, we do try to manage this disease and keep our infection rates quite low, but a key part of that is finding the disease early and tracking, if it's going up or down. And so every year we, portions of the state, we try to test quite a few deer. We do that by asking hunters to drop off deer heads at collection sites.
So I always thought this was more of a Western North Dakota thing. Obviously, I was wrong in assuming that if you're finding this in Climax, Minnesota. Was I naive, or have you guys always known that this was in the East too?
No, I think you're not wrong to think that. And really, up until a couple weeks ago, I'd probably agree with you. We had it in south central to western North Dakota starting in 2009. So that's Grant and Sioux County. We did start to find it up in the far northwest corner of the state, Divide County, but we kind of assumed those were deer, or the leading edge of the disease moving from western states and provinces. Minnesota's been dealing with it in a few little pockets of the state, but we kind of hoped or thought that. Again, until a few weeks ago, that the eastern part of the state was free of chronic wasting disease. And that still may be the case, but we don't know until we start testing a lot of deer. So again, that's why we're trying to bring on board the eastern portion of the state for our surveillance here.
So you're collecting deer heads to do this. What happens, for example, if I got the rack I've always been looking for? I'm sitting there, I want to help out, but you know what? I've been looking for this deer to put on my wall a long time ago. What's your answer to them?
Yeah, there's still several options you have there. We are wrapping up the hunting season, so up until yesterday, we had a biologist stationed out of Hillsboro on the weekends to sample that animal. That being said, if you actually take your deer head to a taxidermist, they usually remove the hide and the skull cap, and then the remainder of that deer head usually just gets discarded. And so we've worked with, or continuing to partner with, a lot of taxidermists really across the state. We'll save that portion of the head, and then we'll come pick it up and test it. So if you are going the taxidermist route, just communicate with them and see if they're participating. You can also then, another option is to just call our office, and we can kind of provide options for you as well. Long story short, it would be a matter of getting a sample from that deer, and then you can take the head and do a European mount or what have you.
Sure. Where are you collecting these? Where do you go?
So this. We are mostly doing surveillance in the western part of the state, but, because of that finding a few weeks ago, we brought on Unit 2B. So we have a collection site at the TSC in Grand Forks, the Cenex in Hillsboro, and then the diagnostic lab, the veterinary diagnostic lab at NDSU there. We'll keep those things cooking here for another week. So we'll start breaking them down next week. But they're still there for the next several days. If you still have a deer head, in a garage or somewhere, we do ask that you consider dropping off that head. There's a little bit of hunting season after that, some muzzleloader, some archery. If you do have an animal that you want to test, give us a call. We'll figure out an arrangement there. But kind of that drop off pickup system will run here for about one more week.
So how long after you harvest the deer? How long, say that deer head's been laying out outside for a week now? Hunting season just got over, deer rifle season. So how long before it's useless to you?
Great question. And really, it's actually quite long, especially this time of year with colder weather. So, we're still sampling deer that were shot on the first day of the season, and usually that's fine. If it got left in a hot car, for days, then maybe it would be hard to collect that sample. But, one kind of challenges of this disease is that it's incredibly resilient to breakdown. And so, that presents a lot of management problems, but it also means that we can actually test animals pretty long after they've died.
So is there a so far? Is there or is that something you want to release all at once?
No, we actually don't have any results yet.
Okay.
We bring the heads back to Bismarck and collect samples, and we send them off to a diagnostic lab in Colorado. And there's really only a handful of these labs. So unfortunately, this time of year, they tend to get samples from, every state in the country. So we know that we're on the list with our first batch that went out 2 weeks ago. I check my email frequently, but I don't have any results back yet. But we hope to start, those should start rolling in here any day now.
So I go out and didn't get the lottery number I wanted. I ended up with getting a doe instead of a buck, which means quit whining Joel, because at least you got a license. So I go out there and I get my doe. Is that deer meat something I should worry about that I'm making into sausage?
Great question, and it's kind of a long answer. The public health experts, the CDC, recommends that if you are hunting in an area where CWD is known to occur, you should get your animal tested and wait for a negative result before consuming the meat. Kind of taking that hat off, we don't know that there's a definite risk. To our knowledge, nobody has ever gotten sick from eating a positive deer, but we can't entirely dismiss that risk. It's not a complete zero. So really, out of a sense of abundant caution, that recommendation is in place. I can tell you that I make the phone call to the guys who hunt, who harvest positive deer every year, and some folks are comfortable with the risk, the little of which, or to the extent that we understand them, and they still go ahead and consume that meat, and a lot of guys aren't, so they discard it. So that's kind of a long answer, but if again, circling back, if you harvest an animal where CWD is known to occur, the recommendation is you wait for a negative test result.
So you're in your Polaris Ranger and you're driving fence line, checking fence, or you're out there just working in a very remote location and you see a deer down. What do you do? Can you help out there? Or do you just, hey, that's one we don't need, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that, Joel. We really heavily depend on the public to let us know what's going on out there. So, year round, this year or any other time, if you see a sick or dead deer, out there that appears to be sick or dead for an unknown reason, we really do ask that you reach out to the department and let us know, and we'll try to follow up and see what's going on with it. So best thing to do generally is contact your local game warden, and they can relay the information to my staff, and we can get somebody out there to take a look.
Last one, I promise, Dr. Charlie. There, I hit both of them at one time. So last one, are you seeing it affect the overall numbers? Does that explain why there's less license out there?
Yeah, that's a great question too, Joel. For the time being, we don't. And what's really important to remember about this disease is that it's really, the effects are going to be dependent on how much of the population is infected. So, our hottest area in Unit 3F2, about 5% of harvested mule deer bucks are positive. And so that means that we're probably not quite to that point where we're going to notice population level effects. unfortunately, once the disease gets into an area and into a population, there's no known way to get rid of it. And so really that number only increases with time. We don't know what that magical threshold will be, what we can sustain, on an annual basis without seeing a drop in our population. But we know that theoretical threshold is out there, and that's something that we're really trying to avoid. So, North Dakota, the battle's not lost, so to speak. We've got it here. So the next step is trying to keep our infection rates low to the extent that we're able.
Thank you for what you do. Thank you so much. Real quick, how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can call our main office, which I'm afraid I don't have it in front of me. Give me 1 second.
That's called the Google, Charlie. They can Google it too.
Google our main office, and they can relay it to our Wildlife Health Lab here in Bismarck. Please do call with questions or comments. We love to talk with the public and appreciate all your help in the role that you play.
You bet. Thanks for coming on.